If you have tinnitus, where you hear a constant ringing sound in your ears, or you have trouble hearing in noisy environments, or you suffer ongoing dizzy attacks, or have a chronic feeling of blocked ear, your doctor has probably told you that nothing can be done. Well, I have good news for you. It's simply not true that nothing can be done. I know this because I have spent my life for the last 30 plus years helping people to overcome these problems. Ear trouble can make you feel hopeless. You may have become discouraged, cynical, or angry because no one or nothing can help you. Whether you have tinnitus or other ear-related problems, please keep listening. I understand that tinnitus is one of the most troubling ear conditions you can have. It is one of the worst things to have to live with, to have constant loud ringing in your ears, to never get any peace inside your own head, to feel plagued day and night with this unrelenting noise that you can never get away from. It can also lead to sleeplessness, anxiety, and depression. Statistics show that tinnitus affects up to 20% of the adult population. It can be triggered by noise, viruses, accidents, stress, or chemical exposure. Other ear-related difficulties can be equally problematic and are often combined with tinnitus. These are chronic or sudden dizzy attacks, hypersensitivity to sound, chronic blocked ear, or the inability to hear when there is background noise. Please keep listening to learn about the real causes and the solution to all of these conditions. For some people, being in noisy environments makes their tinnitus worse. It escalates the sound of the tinnitus. So you have to avoid noisy situations, groups, and public places. So many tinnitus sufferers end up being isolated because social situations trigger a worsening of the problem. Not only that, but it's highly embarrassing when you're in a group and people talk to you and you just can't hear them. You can't follow the conversation. You get left out. You give the wrong response. You feel there's really no point being there. So you stay home and your loved ones don't understand. It is very hard for someone else to understand the impact of tinnitus and hearing problems on your life. They just think you're stubborn, antisocial, that you could hear if you really wanted to. They say, why don't you do something about it? But you've tried to do something about it. You asked your doctor, you asked your audiologist, you even saw a specialist. And the answer was the same everywhere. You'll just have to learn to live with it or get a hearing aid. Now, for some people, a hearing aid may help. It certainly helps to make things sound louder. However, when it comes to some of these misunderstood problems, such as tinnitus, trouble hearing in noisy environments, ear-related dizziness, oversensitivity to sound, or a feeling of chronic blocked ear, a hearing aid is not the right answer. So what is? Well, please stay on, as I do genuinely have a solution for you. It is unique. It is not like any other tinnitus or ear treatment you will find out there. It has been tested by my clients for 30 years and by in-depth clinical and medical research for many, many decades. Let me first tell you how I got involved and why I was interested in this method. It was because of my mother. I do understand what it means to live with debilitating ear and hearing issues because my mother had these. She was extremely sensitive to loud noise, and she found it impossible to tolerate being in a room with a babble of many voices. As I was growing up, I saw how this affected her. My mother became socially isolated. She was stressed, she couldn't sleep, and she really could not function like a normal person. This was difficult for me, as I always had to be careful of the noise I made, to tiptoe around, not play any music, or make any sudden sounds, like even rustling a paper bag in her presence. For my mother, it meant she avoided social situations, didn't meet up with friends, and led a very reclusive life. Believe me, I am very well aware of the suffering that hearing issues can cause. And my mother didn't even have tinnitus. The conditions she had were known as hyperacusis, sound sensitivity, and the cocktail party syndrome, which is difficulty hearing in noisy rooms. These conditions alone are very debilitating. But tinnitus is even worse, as it can go on 24/7 and there is no escape from it at all. I feel enormous empathy for people who struggle with ear-related conditions, and I know how deeply it can affect your life. Your ears are right inside your head. Sound enters into our brain, our very being, and affects us every minute. We need to have a peaceful, balanced relationship with sound in order to live a good life. So please let me share with you my incredible 30-year journey into the ear and what I've learned about how this organ works, what it is for, how it gets damaged and how it can be healed, and how, by healing the ear, we can heal and enhance our brain, our nervous system and our life. Over the last 30 years, I have studied education, audiology and psychology in order to understand this program and be able to deliver it to all the people who need it. This discovery for me began with a chance meeting when I was 20 and studying in Paris. I had a very brief meeting with a Canadian doctor who was there in Paris to train with Dr. Alfred Tomatis, the great ear specialist who invented sound therapy. No other specialist has advanced our understanding of the ear and the role that hearing plays in our well-being the way Dr. Tomatis has. Some refer to him as the Einstein of the ear. Tomatis' unique discovery was that the ear is an active organ, not a passive organ. But why should this matter to you? Well, clearly, something is wrong with your hearing system. Otherwise, you wouldn't be watching this. Some damage has occurred so that your ears and brain are not able to process sound quite the way they should. Now the question is your ear just a mechanical system that once it's broken it can't be repaired? Or is it a living organ that responds to stimulation and can be re-educated, rehabilitated and restored? Your audiologist may tell you one thing, but Dr. Tomatis discovered another. He found that if given the right sort of stimulus, the ear can repair its function. And he found out what that stimulus needs to be and how to make those special recordings in his sound studio to help repair people's ears and hearing system. As a dedicated doctor and a true scientist, following his curiosity, he experimented and learned about the impact of different sounds on all sorts of people with all sorts of ear and brain conditions. He was able to help singers, people with industrial deafness, those with depression or anxiety, and children who had learning and developmental problems. One of the first groups Tomatis worked on was singers, and that is how he discovered the importance of the right ear dominance. The right ear must lead and organise our listening system in order for us to process sound effectively. So he built this into his therapy. He worked with aeroplane mechanics who had industrial deafness and discovered that their hearing could be improved in several ways. By reintroducing them to high-frequency sounds, he was able to help them psychologically to rediscover their listening ability while also activating all parts of the hearing pathway up to the auditory cortex in the brain. And he worked with children who had problems like dyslexia, autism or ADD, who could not tolerate and process sounds to learn and develop their language skills. He was able to improve their auditory processing and normalize their sensory perception so that learning became possible again. Our hearing system consists of many parts. In the middle ear, there are two tiny muscles which must be toned and in good shape for us to tune into the sounds we want to hear and not the sounds we don't want to hear. Through this training, the ear relearns how to tune itself to be receptive to high-frequency sounds. In the inner ear, there are over 30,000 tiny hair-like sensory cells called cilia, which may be damaged by long-term noise exposure, causing hearing loss and tinnitus. When this occurs, we lose our high-frequency hearing. Tomatis' method presents these cells with gentle but intensive high-frequency sounds, which in some cases actually reawakens the ability to hear high frequencies. This sounds impossible, but only to those who don't understand how Tomatis' discoveries work. You see, the ear is a holistic system, including muscles, bones, nerves, neural pathways, and nuclei, which are processing stations for data analysis. Then, within the brain, there are many different functional centres, including the limbic system, the cerebellum, the thalamus, and the auditory cortex, which enable us to comprehend and interpret sound. All of these parts play a role in how we hear sound, how we differentiate sounds in a noisy environment, whether we are oversensitive to sound, and whether we have tinnitus. The amazing discovery that Dr. Tomatis made is that this whole hearing system can be retrained using sound therapy so that people can recover from all these conditions that were previously thought to be impossible to treat. So getting back to my personal story, what happened to our family is my mother underwent the Tomatis treatment when the first Canadian clinic opened in Montreal, and it fixed her problems. After the 3 months of treatment, she no longer had the cocktail party syndrome. She could hear normally in a noisy environment. She could socialise in groups. She was no longer socially isolated. In addition, she overcame her hyperacusis and was no longer sensitive to loud sound. She could circulate in the world without the terrible suffering that this condition had been causing her for decades. I could not believe the difference in her when I returned from Paris. We no longer had to tiptoe around the house. We could play different types of music. She started enjoying listening to Elvis Presley and other music she had enjoyed when she was young. She could go out to social events and parties. She had a new life. But not only that, an unexpected benefit of the program for my mother was the so-called side effects. This was the impact that it had on her brain, her energy, her stress levels, and her insomnia. My mother had become very highly strung and suffered from debilitating sleeplessness, stress, and fatigue. This was all related to her sound sensitivity and the fact that her ears were not fulfilling their most important role. We believe that Tomatis' most important discovery, even more significant than helping the hearing, is the impact that sound therapy has with its gentle, complex, progressive high frequencies on the brain. Dr. Tomatis said the brain is like a battery. It is continually being either charged or discharged by the sounds around us. In the technologically dominated world we have created, unfortunately, we are constantly surrounded by machine noise. While loud sounds such as factories, traffic, and sirens is the most damaging, even the quiet hum of a computer or air conditioner is also draining and tiring for the nervous system. We evolved to be bathed in the sounds of nature, gentle, complex, high-frequency sounds such as frogs, insects, and running water. Unfortunately, today we rarely get to bathe in nature sounds and instead are constantly bombarded with loud, low-frequency machine noise. The result is unprecedented levels of stress, fatigue, and sleeplessness. Statistics tell us that anxiety, stress, and sleeplessness are on the rise, affecting 80 to 90% of adults and also impacting more and more young people, including teenagers and even children. So possibly the biggest impact of sound therapy for my mother was that suddenly her insomnia disappeared and she was sleeping like a baby. Along with that, she found her energy levels skyrocketed. She was able to reduce her time needed for sleep. And during the day, she was active, energized, and focused. She found herself getting around to jobs that had been piling up for years, tidying, sorting, and creating. But best of all, her writer's block had disappeared. My mother was a writer, and if you've ever known a writer, you will understand that writer's block is the worst thing they can have. My mother said she felt 10 years younger, and she really was like a new person when she took on this program in her 60s. But it didn't stop there. A remarkable story unfolded which enabled my mother and I to ultimately bring the wonderful discoveries of Dr. Tomatis to the world. The story is told in the best-selling book we wrote, Sound Therapy, Music to Recharge Your Brain, of how my mother came across a monastery in Western Canada where they were also using the Tomatis method. You see, after she had her initial 3 months of treatment, when she moved away from the Sound Therapy Centre in Montreal and couldn't continue going back for top-ups, the benefits wore off. Of course, she was devastated. She tried to regain that feeling of brain recharge by doing the humming exercise they had taught her. But it was no replacement for actually listening to the special, filtered sound therapy music for 3 hours a day. But now she was living in Saskatchewan, thousands of miles away from the clinic, and she didn't know what to do. So you can imagine her excitement when she heard that there was a monastery just down the road where they were using Tomatis sound therapy, the very same program she had been treated with in Montreal. Of course, she hot-footed it over to the monastery the very next day. And to her amazement, yes, they did have the whole Tomatis setup there at the monastery. The monks were using it for learning disabled teenagers who attended the special school that they ran at the monastery. They welcomed her and allowed her to use the equipment. And sure enough, as soon as she began listening again, the benefits all came flooding back. The extra energy, the deep refreshing sleep, and the creative inspiration for her writing. So now there was no going back. She became a fixture at the monastery, going in every day and doing her writing there in the listening room, until she and the monks made a remarkable discovery. This was the 1980s when the Sony Walkman had just come out. It was the first time we had quality, portable audio. The monks realised that this technology was good enough to relay the high-frequency sounds needed for sound therapy. So they ran the program off onto 4 cassettes, and she took it home. Now, my mother could use the therapy anytime, anywhere, walking, writing, driving, shopping, watching TV, or sleeping. She felt as though she had the keys to the kingdom. She could have just kept this to herself, but my mother was not like that. She was always driven, not just to find solutions, but to share them with the world. Now that she had this amazing technology available in a portable form, she wanted everyone to have it. So she wrote a book about it. She worked with the monks to improve the recording technology so it was suitable for public release, and Sound Therapy International was born. We didn't really know what we had in our hands at that time, but the feedback started coming in, and we started to realise that this was a significant breakthrough. People started writing to us and saying, "My tinnitus is gone. I've had ringing in my ears for 20, 40, 60 years, and it's stopped entirely. I can now hear in noisy rooms and socialise with a group of friends. I can now hear the birds again. I've rejoined the church choir. My dizziness caused by Meniere's syndrome has disappeared. I'm sleeping deeply for the first time in decades. My anxiety is gone. My depression, my nightmares have stopped. Our child has learned to read. Our grandchild is now excelling in school and has overcome his dyslexia or ADD. Children affected by autism improved out of sight. Chronic pain cleared up. Blood pressure normalised. One woman told us, "My husband has stopped snoring." It's true. All of this is now documented in our book, which is now in its 14th edition with over 60,000 copies sold. And most people have even been willing to share their real names. Many were willing to record their experience on video for us. So let's look at some of those now. So, after seeing the power this method can have for tinnitus and so many other troubling conditions, you must be wondering, how does it actually work? So let me explain. As we mentioned, Tomatis showed that the ear is an active organ. But what does this mean? We all know how, through exercise, we can build up and strengthen muscles. Well, sound therapy works in the same way. We have two tiny muscles in the middle ear, and like any other muscle of the body, they need exercise in order to function correctly. The filtered sound therapy music is processed through a special device called the electronic ear, which Dr. Tomatis invented and then refined throughout his life. What this device does is to channel the music through different filters so that it alternates between accentuating the high frequencies and the low frequencies. This change in frequency, Tomatis discovered, causes the ear muscles to alternately relax and contract, just like when you work out at the gym. In fact, we say that sound therapy is just like taking your ears to the gym. So as you listen to the sound therapy program, your ear muscles are being worked to increase their strength and resilience. But this doesn't happen all at once. These muscles are very delicate and they have to be built up gradually. The program we offer is a gradual progression over 6 hours of music so that the muscles can adapt over several weeks or months of listening. You go at your own pace, and we provide a workbook to guide you in a listening routine that is tailored for you. You start with album 1 and gradually work up to album 4. The music of sound therapy is classical music. This type of music has proved the most effective for several reasons. Classical music contains a richer blend of complex melody, complex rhythm, and complex harmony than any other type of music. Therefore, it activates many different areas of the brain to enhance and organize brain connections. But don't make the mistake of thinking it's just a normal recording of classical music. The most important thing is what we have done to the music. It makes it into a dynamic and restorative sound therapy program. Most people find that the more they listen, the more they enjoy the classical music. However, if this type of music is not your preference, you can turn it down low and listen to something else at the same time. The therapy still works, even if you don't pay attention to it. Sound therapy is suitable for people of any age, from babies to 90-year-olds. We have seen amazing success, so never think you are too old or too young for the program to work. So how does it actually work for tinnitus? How can we say we have a treatment for this condition when your doctor told you that nothing can be done? Well, let me explain. You see, tinnitus is not occurring in the ear, it's taking place in the brain. This fact was established back in the 1990s when Dr. Paul Jastroboff revealed the neurophysiological model of tinnitus. What we now know is that although tinnitus often begins from an injury to the ear, the perpetuation of the sound is occurring in the brain. It is the repetitive firing of brain pathways in a certain region of the brain that causes us to keep experiencing this continuous phantom noise. So to stop that process, we have to rewire the brain. Rewiring the brain is possible, as Dr. Norman Doidge showed in his best-selling book, The Brain That Changes Itself. But it takes time, and it requires intensive, specific retraining over an extended period of time. Sound therapy is the perfect way to provide this retraining for the auditory system. But it's only since sound therapy went portable, thanks to my mother, that people were able to afford and access the longer-term treatment required for tinnitus recovery. This is why we were the first in the world to discover the benefits of this treatment for tinnitus. Since then, many thousands of listeners have enjoyed the relief that the reduction or elimination of tinnitus provides. I hope you will become one of them too. Now, if you are someone who struggles with hearing in background noise, let me explain how sound therapy enables people to recover from the cocktail party syndrome. This condition is so little understood that it doesn't even have a proper clinical name. It may be referred to as background noise discrimination problems. The problem is extremely common. From my own research, I have established that about 30% of the population over 50 has this problem. but many younger people have it too. Unfortunately, when people with this problem are offered a hearing aid, it usually does not help. In fact, it may make the problem worse as it amplifies all the background noise and makes it even harder to hear in a noisy environment. This is the main reason that so many hearing aids end up in the drawer. It is tricky to treat this problem because the cause is twofold. It's partly the ear and it's partly the brain. Sound therapy is so effective because it works on both. It helps the ear to tune in more accurately to the sound by retraining the ear muscles. It helps the brain to focus better on relevant sound by organising the brain pathways in the auditory system. Not only this, but it repairs the relationship and the communication cycle between the ear and the brain. You see, the ear and the brain are parts of a feedback loop that need to communicate very clearly with each other in order for us to perform the incredibly complex task of hearing. Sound therapy effectively retrains this whole system by restoring both the receptive and active functions of the ears and the auditory systems in the brain. There is no other therapy that does this. And that is why sound therapy is the only treatment you will find to effectively address the problem of cocktail party syndrome. What about vertigo and dizziness? Balance is a very complex system involving vision, hearing, joint and muscle receptors, and the integration of all of these senses. I won't go into all the different balance disorders here, but let me say that whether you just feel slightly unsteady on your feet when you do certain activities, or if you have severe, unexpected dizzy attacks with nausea, sound therapy will help you. Balance is part of the ear, and it depends on a healthy, well-balanced, well-functioning ear, plus its relationship to many brain centres to do with movement, perception, and balance. All of this can be rehabilitated and restored by sound therapy and has given so many people a new lease on life. And how about stress-related disorders? Well, if you are struggling with anxiety, depression, or even post-traumatic stress disorder, sound therapy can help you to recover. It works in a profound way to calm the brain and nervous system using primary neural pathways deep within our being. Dr. Tomatis found how the mother's voice forms our relationship to sound and to all other people. So by accessing our early responses to the mother's voice, we can repair and recover from patterns of trauma. Research has shown that sound therapy switches on the vagal nerve, a particular part of our nervous system that creates calm and safety, and that it activates certain centres in the left forebrain that trigger positive mood states. It is so easy to simply put on the music and switch on your nervous system into a calm and uplifted state of mind. Certainly better and safer than drugs. As a result of sound therapy, people in all walks of life find they can communicate better with others. They can hear in business meetings and advance their careers. They can hear on the phone, go out with their friends, hear their grandchildren, and enjoy family gatherings again. They can hear the birds and rediscover feelings of calm and enjoyment of nature. They can hear the choir and the choir master and go back to the singing they enjoyed. They can hear their partner and reduce the stress in their relationships. Connecting with others is essential for human satisfaction and meaning in life. So these things can help you to remain an active and fulfilled member of your family and community. The great benefit of sound therapy is that it is so easy to do. It takes no time out of your day, as you simply have it on quietly with lightweight headphones during other daily activities. Listening to sound therapy is pleasant, enjoyable, and effortless. I have used it myself nearly every day and night for over 30 years. So many of our listeners have also used it for decades, have upgraded their technology, taken up our advanced programs, and continue to make sound therapy a valued part of their life. You may be wondering how long it will take to work. You can expect some results very quickly, like better sleep and higher energy levels. Hearing problems and tinnitus usually improve within a few weeks or months. But the ongoing maintenance of having better sleep, deeper human connection, and improved brain function for a lifetime, plus preserving and protecting your ears and brain, has incalculable benefits. Sound therapy has been the journey of my life, working with my mother to bring this method to the public, making it affordable, accessible, and easy to use for everyone who needs it. And perhaps the best part has been working with a team of caring staff and consultants who have dedicated their lives to helping and supporting our customers in using the program. When you become a Sound Therapy listener, you receive this support as well. You are part of our Sound Therapy community, and we are there for you to back you up, to solve your problems, answer your questions, and ensure you get the most possible benefit from our program. I promise you, you won't be on your own. So I invite you to take the next step. Order now or book in with a consultant to discuss your needs in a free telephone consultation. We want to help you become fully informed and to get started with a program that will change your life for the better. We are about ear and brain health for life, and sound therapy is the best and easiest way for you to achieve that and make the most out of your life.